One strange thing happens to dogs when humans cry, and once you notice it, you'll realize your dog has probably done it many times before. Have you ever started crying, looked over, and realized your dog was already watching you, not barking, not whining, just sitting there, completely still, eyes fixed on you like they knew something was wrong before you did? Most people think that moment is simple. They assume the dog is curious about the sound, but researchers eventually discovered something much stranger. Your dog often knows you're upset before the first tear even falls, and the reason has nothing to do with crying itself. But before we get to that, there's another part of this story most people never talk about, because sometimes, when people cry, their dog quietly leaves the room. And when that happens, many owners feel a small sting, like the dog somehow didn't care. But the real reason dogs sometimes walk away is actually much more emotional than people realize. We'll come back to that in a moment, because first, we need to understand something important about how dogs see their owners. Your dog doesn't just live with you, they observe you every single day. Your habits, your routines, your voice, your energy, your breathing, your scent. Over time, dogs build something researchers describe as a mental model of their owner. They learn what your normal looks like, your normal tone, your normal movements, your normal emotional rhythm. So when something changes, even slightly, your dog notices, long before another person might. Think about the last time you felt overwhelmed. Maybe you were sitting quietly, maybe nothing dramatic had happened yet, but something inside you was shifting, your breathing slowed, your shoulders dropped, your posture changed. Those signals are almost invisible to other humans, but dogs are incredibly sensitive to them, which means something fascinating often happens in the moments before someone cries. Your dog is already picking up signals. Your scent shifts slightly. Your breathing pattern changes, your body language softens. To your dog, those changes are like pieces of information, and their brain begins putting them together. Something isn't right. Something is happening to the person they know best. And this is where biology becomes important. When humans experience emotional stress, the body releases a hormone called cortisol. It's part of the body's natural response system, and when cortisol rises, something subtle happens. Your scent changes. Humans can't detect it, but dogs can. A dog's nose contains around 300 million scent receptors. Humans have about 6 million. To a dog, emotional stress isn't invisible. It's chemical information, which means your dog may know you're overwhelmed before you consciously realize it yourself. But scent is only part of the story. Dogs are also very good at reading micro-expressions, small facial movements that appear before strong emotions surface. A tightening jaw, a slight shift in the eyebrows, a change in breathing, a subtle drop in posture. These tiny signals appear seconds before tears. Your dog sees them, and once those signals combine with scent changes, your dog's brain recognizes a pattern. Something important is happening. Now here's where things get interesting, because when humans see someone cry, we usually respond with words. We ask questions. We try to fix the problem. Dogs respond in a completely different way. And that difference might explain why their presence can feel so powerful in emotional moments. Imagine someone you care about starts crying. Most people immediately say something. "What's wrong? Talk to me. It'll be okay." Those responses are meant to help, but words activate the thinking part of the brain. People begin explaining, analyzing, trying to control their emotions. Dogs don't do that. They don't interrupt the moment. They don't ask questions. Instead, they simply move closer. Sometimes they sit beside you. Sometimes they just watch quietly. And sometimes they lean against you. If you've owned a dog long enough, you probably recognize that moment. The moment your dog presses their body gently against yours, head resting on your leg, shoulder leaning into you, sometimes even placing a paw on your arm. Most people describe that as cuddling, but researchers studying human-animal interaction noticed something interesting about that moment, because when that contact happens, the human nervous system begins changing almost immediately. Breathing slows, heart rate drops, stress hormones begin falling, and another chemical starts rising, oxytocin, the same bonding hormone involved in trust and emotional connection. And here's something most dog owners never realize. Your dog isn't just calming you, they're calming themselves too. Because when you cry, your dog experiences stress as well. Your emotional state affects them physically, which means that moment when they lean against you isn't just comfort. It's two nervous systems stabilizing each other. But sometimes something completely different happens. And if you've owned a dog long enough, you may have seen it. Because occasionally, when someone begins crying, their dog quietly leaves the room. And the reason behind that behavior is something most owners completely misunderstand. Before we answer why some dogs leave the room, think about the moment itself. You're upset, maybe sitting on the couch, maybe the room is quiet, and your dog, who normally follows you everywhere, suddenly walks away. No panic, no barking, they just leave. And if that's ever happened to you, there's a good chance a small thought crossed your mind. Why would they leave now? Do they not understand? But researchers studying dog behavior eventually realized something important. Dogs don't all respond to human distress the same way. Some approach immediately, some sit quietly nearby, some lean against their owner, and some step away. At first, scientists thought this might simply be avoidance, but a different explanation began appearing in research, something called emotional contagion. Emotional contagion happens when one creature absorbs the emotional state of another. Humans experience this all the time. Think about walking into a tense room. Even if nobody says anything, you can feel something is wrong. Your body reacts automatically. Your breathing shifts. Your attention sharpens. Dogs experience this phenomenon as well, but often more intensely. Because dogs rely heavily on scent and body language, emotional signals from humans can become extremely powerful to them. When you're distressed, several things happen at once. Your scent changes. Your breathing pattern shifts. Your voice sounds different. Your posture softens or collapses. All of these signals arrive at your dog's senses simultaneously. For some dogs, that flood of emotional information becomes overwhelming, so their instinct is to step away briefly. Not because they don't care, but because their brain is trying to regulate the emotional intensity. Some dogs will leave for a moment, then quietly return, check on you, leave again, then come back once more. If you've ever noticed that pattern, you weren't watching indifference. You were watching a dog managing emotional overload. But this discovery led scientists to an even bigger question. Were dogs simply reacting to unusual behavior, or were they actually responding to human emotions? To find out, researchers designed a fascinating experiment, and the results surprised almost everyone. In one study, dog owners were asked to sit in front of their dogs and perform two different behaviors. In the first situation, the owner pretended to cry. Soft crying sounds, body language suggesting distress, nothing dramatic, just enough to resemble genuine sadness. In the second situation, the owner did something completely neutral. They simply hummed quietly. Same person, same room, same posture, but emotionally calm. Then researchers observed how the dogs reacted. The difference in behavior was striking. Dogs approached crying owners much faster than humming owners. But what stood out even more was how they approached. They didn't run excitedly. They didn't jump or bark. Instead, their movements slowed. Their posture softened. Some gently leaned against their owner. Others rested their head nearby. The behavior looked almost identical to how dogs comfort other dogs experiencing distress. In other words, the dogs weren't simply curious about an unusual sound. They were responding to what looked like emotional suffering. And researchers eventually reached a conclusion that changed how many scientists think about dogs. Dogs don't just notice human emotions. In many situations, they're motivated to respond to them, not because they expect a reward, not because they were trained, but because thousands of years living alongside humans may have shaped their instincts to care about our emotional signals. But that discovery raises an interesting question. What happens after the moment ends? After the crying stops? After the person wipes their face? After everything becomes quiet again? Do dogs simply move on? Or do those emotional moments stay with them somehow? The answer reveals something fascinating about how dogs remember the people they love, and it explains a behavior many owners notice, but rarely understand. If you've lived with a dog long enough, you may recognize this moment. You're sitting quietly, nothing unusual is happening. Your dog looks at you, not playfully, not expecting food, just looking, soft eyes, still posture, almost thoughtful. Many owners describe this as a knowing look, and scientists believe those moments may be connected to emotional memories dogs build about their owners. Because emotionally intense events are stored differently in the brain, which means the times your dog has seen you upset may actually become some of the most powerful memories they have of you. But to understand why, we need to look at how emotional memory works in dogs and what they may actually remember from those moments. To understand why those moments stay with dogs, we need to talk about how emotional memories work, because not all memories are stored the same way. Most ordinary moments fade quickly. The walk you took yesterday, the exact moment you filled your dog's food bowl, the routine parts of the day. But emotional moments are different. When something emotionally intense happens, the brain treats it as important. Two areas become especially active: the amygdala, which processes emotional meaning, and the hippocampus, which helps store memory. Humans use the same system, and one factor makes memories much stronger: emotion. The stronger the emotional signal, the more likely the brain is to store that moment deeply, which means the times your dog has watched you cry, those moments may become some of the strongest memories they have of you. Your breathing, your voice, your scent, your posture, all of it becomes part of the memory. But the most important part of that memory isn't just that you were upset, it's that they were there with you. Dogs don't understand sadness the way humans explain it. They don't know the story behind the tears. They don't know the reason you were overwhelmed, but they recognize something else. They recognize emotional states, and over time, they connect those emotional states to patterns. When your breathing changes, when your scent shifts, when your posture softens, those patterns become familiar signals, which means when your dog sees them again, their brain may recall previous moments when those signals appeared, moments when you needed comfort, moments when they stayed beside you, moments that mattered, and that may explain something many dog owners notice. Sometimes your dog seems to look at you in a quiet, thoughtful way, not playful, not excited, just calm, almost like they're observing you carefully. That look isn't random. There's a good chance your dog is simply doing what they've always done: watching, reading, learning. Because dogs understand relationships through presence. Who stays close, who leaves, who returns. And through hundreds of small experiences together, your dog slowly learns something important about you. Not through language, not through explanations, but through observation. Think back to the moment we talked about earlier, the moment when someone starts crying and suddenly notices their dog already watching them. Still, quiet, eyes fixed on them, almost like the dog knew something was wrong. Now you know why that moment happens. Your dog wasn't reacting to the crying, they were reacting to everything that came before it. Your breathing, your scent, your posture, all the subtle signals humans rarely notice about each other. Your dog noticed them, and then they made a decision. They moved closer, not because they were trained to, not because they expected something in return, but because something deep in their instincts tells them not to leave someone they care about alone during distress. And maybe that's one of the most remarkable things about dogs. Out of all the animals that share our world, they're one of the few that have learned to read human emotion this closely. They may not understand every detail. They may not know the story behind your tears, but they recognize the moment, and they respond the only way they know how: by staying. Every dog reacts a little differently in these situations. Some come closer immediately, some gently lean against their owner, and some briefly leave the room before returning a few minutes later. So I'm curious, when you cry, what does your dog usually do? Do they come closer, or do they quietly leave the room and come back later? Let me know. I'd love to see how many dogs respond in each way. The next time you're overwhelmed and you notice your dog quietly sitting beside you, remember something simple. They didn't come because of the sound. They didn't come out of curiosity. They came because somewhere along the way, your dog learned something about you. They learned that when certain signals appear, You might need company, and in that moment, they chose to stay.